Hello everyone, this is Bradley. Today I want to talk about some add-ons I use when working with geometry nodes. You may have seen these in my tutorials or in the future, or you might encounter them in other places or not. Either way, I find them really useful in my actual projects, so I want to share them with you. For various reasons, such as the high submission standards for the Blender extension platform, some of these add-ons remain only on their GitHub pages. All the links are in the description. I will go over the installation process a bit later. Let's start with the add-on I really want to share. It's called a Voronoi linker. First, let's take a quick look at the function I want to highlight. Right now, I have a combine XYZ node and a set position node. I want to connect the combine XYZ to this offset socket, so I hold Alt and right-click drag. You will see the sockets get highlighted, and when I release the mouse, they connect. You can try this in a complex node tree too, although I don't usually do that. This function is similar to the lazy connect feature in another add-on called Node Wrangler. However, as you can see from the comparison, the Voronoi linker is more visually appealing and easier to use. Another important function of Voronoi linker is to hide sockets. For example, take the subdivision surface node. If I only care about the level socket and want to ignore all the others, I can hover my mouse over each socket and press Shift-E to hide them individually. These functions come from the Voronoi linker add-on, which I have heavily modified. The original add-on was extremely complex. There were over 60,000 lines of code in a single Python file, with many undocumented functions and comments in Russian or Chinese. On top of that, more functions meant more shortcuts, which increased the chance of conflicts and made the add-on harder to manage. So I forked my own version and removed most of the code I didn't need. For now, I've only kept two functions I just showed to you. I might re-add others later, but for the moment, these are the most useful function I use for Voronoi linker. Installing it is pretty simple. Following the link in the description to the GitHub page, you can either use my version or the original repository with more functions. However, the original repository requires some changes for 5.0, so I will skip those parts. Click the Python file, you will see a download button next to the raw text. Save it to get the Python file, then in Blender preference, choose Install from disk to select the file you just downloaded. Enable the add-on that appears. You can change the shortcuts in preference too, but I just stick with the defaults as I said. Alt right click drag and Shift-E. While these functions are great, there's one problem with hiding sockets. For example, the principal BSDF node has so many sockets that even repeatedly press Shift-E takes a long time. This is where another extension comes in. It's called toggle visibility. You can find it in preference because it's on extension platform. With this add-on, you will need to set a shortcut manually. I use Ctrl+Shift+E. If I select a node and press the shortcuts, a panel appears showing the status of all sockets. You can uncheck the boxes to hide them. It takes a few more steps because of the panel, but it's very useful when you want to hide a large number of sockets at once. The next category is profiling. Blender does have a built-in option to display execution time above each node. You can enable that from the overlay menu, and the overall execution time appears above the group output node. But in a large node tree, this is inconvenient because you have to zoom all the way back to the group outputs just to see the total time. Two add-ons can improve this. The first is called Profiling Buddy. It's available on the extension platform. When enabled, it adds a panel in the modifier tab that shows the execution time for each modifier. It's made by a member from Blender Studio. The downside is that it only works in the modifier panel. If you click away, selecting the other object or to trigger transform of the same object, you lose the view. The second option, developed by a Chinese developer and modified by me, displays the profiling time on the top left corner of the node editor. This method still contains similar limitations as the profiling body, because selection and evaluation in Blender is a very tricky topic. But at least it doesn't require you to stay on the view of modifier panel. Also, depending on your layout, the numbering in the node editor makes things feeling more focused, in my opinion, when you're working in the node tree. These are the main add-ons I actually use. There are plenty of others I've seen, but some even cause shortcut conflicts with default Blender functions, which can break basic operations. I don't want to spend the time teaching people how to fix each individual conflict, so I will skip them. However, there's one last controversial add-on I want to mention, which you have probably heard of. It's called the node Wrangler. This node is technically shipped with Blender, so you can enable in the preference right away. It's been used in community for a very long time and has many functions. In practice though, I think most people use it for 2 or 3 main reasons. One of the minor reasons can be lazy connect, but I've just discussed the advantage to use Voronoi linker instead. To avoid the shortcut conflict, I will go to the key map and disable these 2 lazy connect. Talking about commonly used major functions, it used to be seen as the only way to get viewers in the node system. This used to be true, but now these functions are mostly integrated into Blender. Even without node Wrangler enabled in my preference now, in geometrynodes, I can still use most of its shortcuts, Ctrl+Shift-click to add viewers, or Alt-Shift-click for connection to the group output. This is equally true to shaders. Whether you Ctrl+Shift-click or Alt-Shift-click, you're connecting them to the material output. Even inside a group node, you will see it works by creating a temporary sockets and linkage for visualization, which automatically disappears when you view something else. The viewer was the main reason people used to rely on node Wrangler, but it has been mostly integrated into Blender for quite some time now, so I can work without that add-on. Second, in shader nodes, there's the Ctrl+T shortcut. If you select a principal BSDF and press Ctrl+T, you automatically get the texture coordinates and the mapping nodes connected to an image texture. This is extremely useful and not easily replaceable by other add-ons, as far as I know. Of course, there are some hidden gems. For example, at the time making this video, I just noticed that if you select the multiple geometry nodes, by hitting Shift-W, you can add a join geometry nodes. This can be very useful, but without clear documentation, it's easy to miss. There are also many complex and edge cases which this kind of function does not work at all. Overall, the goal is to integrate node Wrangler's function directly into Blender's core, but the progress has been slow and developers are busy with other priorities. So that's it. I've covered the 5 add-ons, 2 of them interchangeable depending on your preference. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.